Okay, picture this for a second. You're lying in bed, it's like 11:40 at night, and you should be asleep, but instead you're doing that thing where you open your banking app for no reason at all. Nothing's wrong. You're not checking a bill. You're just looking. And that little number on the screen kind of just sits there, staring back at you, and you think, honestly, I should be doing something with this. I should be investing. Everyone says that. Your coworker won't shut up about his Roth IRA. Your cousin keeps posting screenshots of some app, and somewhere in the back of your mind, there's this quiet, nagging voice going, "You're behind, you're behind, you're behind." And look, I get it. I really do. My name is Rick, and I spend an unreasonable amount of time thinking about money. Not just the mechanics of it, the spreadsheets and the percentages, but the actual psychology underneath it. Why some people can start with nothing and calmly, almost boringly, build real wealth over time, while other people who make plenty of money stay frozen, stuck, scrolling their banking app at midnight, feeling vaguely guilty about a future they haven't started building yet. So here's what I want to do today. I want to pretend, just for a minute, that it's 2026. I have zero investments, zero experience, and I'm starting completely from scratch. No jargon, no shortcuts, no "this one stock is about to explode" nonsense. Just the actual, honest, unglamorous plan I'd follow if I were you, right now, this week. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. The plan is almost never the hard part. The hard part is believing that the boring plan is actually the good plan. And by the end of this, I think you're going to see your own financial situation a little differently, maybe even feel a little lighter about it. Let's get into it. So, the very first thing, and honestly, this is the step that trips up more people than any investment strategy ever could, is just opening the account. That's it. Before we talk about index funds or asset allocation or any of that, we have to talk about the fact that most people who want to invest never actually do because they're waiting for some perfect moment that doesn't exist. I think about my friend Elena, who spent literally 2 years, researching before she opened a single account. She read books, she watched videos, she had a whole folder of bookmarked articles. And in that time, the market did what markets do. It went up, it dipped a little, it went up more. She wasn't protecting herself by waiting. She was just standing still while the escalator kept moving. Here's the honest breakdown. In 2026, opening a brokerage account takes maybe 10 minutes. Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, pick one. It genuinely does not matter which. They're all solid, boring, reputable places to park your money. You link your bank account, you verify your identity, and you're done. No fee to open it. No fee to just have it sitting there. Why does this matter so much? Because time in the market is doing the actual heavy lifting here, not your genius stock picks. A dollar invested today has decades to compound if you're young. And even if you're not young, it still has more time to grow than a dollar invested a year from now after you've finished researching. So my actual advice, step 1, is almost embarrassingly simple. Open the account today, even if you're putting in $50. Not because $50 will change your life. It won't. But because you cross this weird psychological threshold where investing stops being a someday thing and starts being a thing you already do. And that shift matters more than people give it credit for. Okay, now that the account exists, here's where I think most people go wrong immediately. They open the account, and their very first move is to buy some individual stock they heard about on a podcast. And look, I understand the appeal. It's exciting. There's a name attached, a story, a founder, maybe even a product you personally use. It feels like investing. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If I started in 2026 with, say, a few $1,000s, 90, maybe 95% of it would go straight into broad, boring, diversified index funds. Something tracking the total US stock market, maybe a small slice in international markets. That's it. That's the foundation. Think of it like building a house. You don't start with the chandelier. You don't start picking out the paint color for the guest bathroom. You pour the foundation first, because without it, everything else eventually cracks or sinks or just falls over. The index fund is the foundation. It's not thrilling. Nobody's bragging about their S&P 500 index fund at a dinner party. But it's quietly, reliably done more for regular people's net worth than almost any exciting stock pick in history. Why? Because when you buy an individual stock, You're betting that you know something the market doesn't. And, honestly, you probably don't. Professional fund managers with teams of analysts and unlimited data still can't consistently beat the market over time. So what makes any of us think we'll do better picking one company based on a headline we saw? The actionable version of this is straightforward. Set up automatic contributions, even something modest, $100, $200 a month, into a low-cost index fund. Vanguard's VTI, Fidelity's FZROX, whatever your platform offers with a rock-bottom expense ratio. Automate it so it happens whether you're paying attention or not, because willpower is unreliable, but automation isn't. And look, I'm not saying never buy an individual stock. If you want to put 5% of your portfolio into a company you genuinely believe in, go for it. That's basically your fun money bucket. And there's nothing wrong with a little fun. Just don't confuse that 5% with your actual investment strategy. The foundation is the boring part. The fun money is the porch furniture. You need the foundation first. Now here's something that genuinely annoys me, because it's such a simple fix, and so many people skip it. The account type you invest in matters just as much as what you invest in. If I were starting in 2026, before I put a single dollar into a regular taxable brokerage account, I'd max out, or at least contribute meaningfully to, any tax-advantaged accounts available to me. A 401k, especially if there's an employer match, because that match is, quite literally, free money. Turning that down is like your employer handing you a stack of cash and you just leaving it on the table because you didn't fill out a form. After that, a Roth IRA, if I qualify based on income. Here's the simple version of why this matters. Money grows tax-free inside these accounts. In a regular brokerage account, every time you sell an investment for a gain, you owe taxes on that gain. Inside a Roth IRA, that growth is yours, completely untouched, when you eventually withdraw it in retirement. I think about my old roommate, Marcus, invested for 6 years, did everything right in terms of picking solid index funds, but did it entirely in a regular taxable account and never opened a Roth IRA. Mostly because the paperwork felt intimidating. 6 years of unnecessary tax exposure for something that would have taken him maybe 20 extra minutes to set up. That's not a knock on him, it's just a really common, quiet mistake. The takeaway here is sequencing. Employer match first because it's free. Roth IRA second because of the tax-free growth. Then, if there's still money left to invest after that, the taxable brokerage account. It's not exciting to talk about account types, I know, but this one decision made early can genuinely be worth tens of thousands of dollars over a few decades. Boring? Sure. Powerful? Also yes. Alright, this next one isn't technically investing, but I'd be doing a disservice to you if I skipped it because it's the thing that protects everything else you're building. Here's the scenario I want you to imagine. You've been investing consistently for 18 months. You're feeling good, the account's growing, you check it more than you probably should, but hey, it's satisfying. And then your car breaks down, or you lose your job, or some unexpected medical bill shows up that your insurance decided not to cover, for reasons insurance companies never really explain. If you don't have cash set aside for exactly this moment, you're forced to sell your investments. Possibly during a downturn, possibly at a loss, just to cover a real-life emergency. And that's genuinely one of the most painful things that can happen to a new investor, because it teaches the wrong lesson. It teaches you that investing is risky and scary, when really the problem wasn't the investing at all. The problem was the missing safety net underneath it. So before going aggressive with contributions, I'd build 3 to 6 months of essential expenses in a high-yield savings account, separate from my checking account, separate from my investments, untouched unless it's an actual emergency. In 2026, high-yield savings accounts are paying meaningfully more interest than they used to, so this money isn't even sitting there doing nothing. It's earning a bit while it waits. The emotional piece here matters too. Having that cushion changes how you feel about market drops. When the market dips 15–20%, and it will at some point, it always does, you're not panicking about rent. You're just watching your long-term investments do what long-term investments occasionally do, with the calm detachment of someone who isn't relying on that money next Tuesday. This one sounds almost too simple to be a step, But it might be the most important behavioral piece of the entire plan. If I started in 2026, I would set everything up on autopilot, and then, for the most part, just stop looking. I know how that sounds. Isn't paying attention a good thing? Shouldn't a responsible investor be tracking their portfolio? And sure, checking in occasionally, maybe once a quarter, makes sense. But checking daily, or worse, checking every time there's a scary headline about inflation or a recession or some tech company's earnings call, that's not diligence. That's just anxiety wearing a financial costume. There's actually research on this, and it's kind of funny in a sad way. Investors who check their portfolios less frequently tend to earn better returns than those who check constantly. Not because ignorance is some magic strategy, but because frequent checking leads to emotional decisions. You see a dip, you panic, you sell, you see a spike, you get greedy, you chase it. The market rewards patience and quietly punishes fidgeting. I think of my uncle, who's been investing since the 90s and genuinely doesn't know his portfolio balance most months. Not because he doesn't care, but because he set up automatic contributions decades ago and just let it run. He's not glued to CNBC. He's not refreshing an app. He's out living his life, and the compounding is happening quietly in the background, like a plant growing in a room nobody's watching. The actionable advice here is to automate your contributions on payday. Set a calendar reminder to review things once every 3 or 6 months, and then genuinely put the phone down otherwise. Your future self, the one who's actually going to benefit from all this compounding, doesn't need you obsessively supervising every 0.25% fluctuation. They just need you to keep showing up, consistently, and get out of the way. Last thing, and honestly maybe the most important mindset shift of the whole video. If I were starting fresh in 2026, I'd try to let go as early as possible of the idea that I need to beat the market to win, because that's not actually the game we're playing here. The game is staying invested long enough for compounding to do the quiet, unglamorous work it's designed to do. It's showing up in a recession the same way you showed up in a bull market. It's not selling in a panic when the news anchors start using words like plunge and bloodbath, because honestly, they always do, every single time, and the market has recovered from every single one of those headlines so far. I think about 2020 a lot, actually. March 2020, the market dropped something like 30% in a matter of weeks. It felt like the end of the world, genuinely. People pulled money out in a panic, locked in real losses, and then watched from the sidelines as the market clawed back and then kept climbing for years after. The people who did nothing, who just kept their automatic contributions running, who didn't touch a thing, came out fine. Better than fine, honestly. So here's the mindset I'd carry with me from day one. Inflation is going to happen. Downturns are going to happen. Some year, at some point, the number on your screen is going to be smaller than it was last year. And it's going to feel bad because losing money always feels bad, even on paper. But the goal was never to avoid that feeling entirely. The goal is to keep going anyway, because the alternative, staying out of the market entirely to avoid the discomfort, guarantees you miss the growth too. The actionable takeaway is almost a permission slip more than advice. You're allowed to feel nervous when the market drops, and you're allowed to keep your money invested anyway. Those two things aren't in conflict. In fact, that's basically the entire job description of a long-term investor. So, if I'm being completely honest, none of this is glamorous. There's no secret stock, no perfect timing trick, no clever hack that makes 2026 different from any other year someone decided to start investing. It's opening the account instead of waiting. It's choosing boring, diversified funds over exciting individual bets. It's using the tax-advantaged accounts that are quietly sitting there waiting for you. It's building a cushion so a flat tire doesn't derail your future. And it's automating things, then having the discipline to leave it alone. And maybe that feels a little anticlimactic. I get it. We're kind of trained to want the dramatic version, the movie montage version of building wealth. But real financial change tends to look more like a slow sunrise than a fireworks show. Quiet, gradual, easy to miss if you're not paying attention. And then one day you look up and the whole sky's different. Here's what I want you to actually take away from this. You don't need more money to start. You don't need a finance degree, you don't need perfect timing, and you definitely don't need to have it all figured out before you begin. You just need to start, imperfectly this week, with whatever amount feels manageable, and let time do what it's genuinely, patiently good at doing. So close this video and go do one small thing. Open the account, set up the automatic transfer, look into your employer match. Just one step. Not because it'll change your life tomorrow, but because a year from now, you'll be really glad you stopped waiting for the perfect moment and just started with the one you actually had. Now, if you found this valuable, make sure to press that like button, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.